Hello, welcome to a new video of the WorkWithPlus course. So far, everything we've done has been worked directly into the transaction. But what happens if we need to make a listing that is not directly associated with a transaction or an enrollment panel? In cases like this, we can use web panels. Let's create a web panel called List Person. We press Ctrl-N, select Web Panel, and then name it as List Person. Press Create. Let's save it and go to the Patterns tab. Doing so will open the template selector automatically, where it provides us with all the templates that WorkWithPlus has available. For example, we have dashboard templates, where we can create panels with indicators, and modules to create panels with options. Particularly, we will use the default list template. We click Apply. When selecting it, it will ask us if we want our list to be based on a transaction, an SDT, or variables. For this example, we are going to use variables. We select it and click OK. Now we simply have to click the Apply button. We are going to right-click on our grid node and select Add, and we will add a variable based on, and therefore we have to click on Grid. Variable is based on. In this case, we will add 3 attributes that will be person ID, person first name, and person last name. So we write here person. It will show us the attributes related to the person transaction. We select that it will be person ID, person first name, and person last name. After having the 3 attributes selected, we click the OK button. This is what we are doing when selecting these attributes. It is going to be creating variables based on these attributes. And here we have our 3 variables created. We apply the changes so that the web form and panel events are generated. Now we must go to the events. We go to the grid.load event. Here it is. And we must add R for each so that the records are loaded. And here we have R for each created. It is important that when we create R for each to load a grid, the pattern code is between it. Finally, we are going to place in the load code of each variable the code necessary for it to be loaded. We select the variable, and here in low code we are going to place the name of the variable, which in this case is person ID, is the equal to, with the same attribute, which in this case is person ID. And so on for the other variables. For example, in person first name we must place the name of the variable, which is person first name, equal to the name of the attribute, which is the same. And we repeat the process for the last variable. We save the changes so we see them at runtime. When we run it, we see that our grid is loading with R for each. If we try to use our full text filter that is on our screen, we see that it does not work. We will try it, for example, with Russell, and it does not filter. Now, with another name, for example, we type Lopez. It doesn't filter either. So why is this happening? This is because WorkWithPlus, in these cases, does not know which table it is browsing. Therefore, you cannot generate the conditions in hour for each. It is the developer's responsibility to generate the conditions. In my case, I am going to generate this condition. Let's go to the events in the for each that we created, which is in the grid.load event. We will place this condition. Always make sure to place our code outside the code that WorkWithPlus generates. This is the condition that we will create. We also see that the paging bar indicates that there are no records. This is because we need to tell the paging bar how many pages the grid has. In this case, we can include the following code in the refresh event. We can search for the events by scrolling or also from here in this combo, And here we have all the events that are within this web panel. Here we can search for the ones we want, and clicking on it will position us in the position of this particular event. In this case, we want to go to the refresh event. Therefore, we click here, and it directs us exactly where our refresh event is positioned. Next, we will place the code necessary for our pagination. This is the code we have implemented to load our pagination bar. Remember that when you add new code, you must make sure that the variables are created. For example, in this case we do not have the count variable, so we must right-click and select Add Variable. Finally, and also, so that our export and export report features also work, in this case we must open the procedures. We can do it by pressing Ctrl-O on our keyboard, and the object selector will open. Here we filter by type, which in this case is procedure, and we look for the list of procedures, export in this case. We type list. In the case of export, it would be list person export. And in the case of export report, it is list person export report. First, we are going to do it for export, and the one we need is this one. And we must add R for each. Here we have created R for each for our list person export. Now we are going to do the same for export report. We do the same by pressing Ctrl-O. The object selector opens, and in this case we open the list person export report procedure. And here in this case we must do it in print data, in the print data subroutine. We create the respective for each, then we load our code and close it. And now we are going to compile and see it in runtime. Now, if I filter by the letter L, it is filtering me by people who have a first or last name that begins with the letter L. We can also filter the grid with the records by Excel or PDF. And here our grid has been exported, and the grid exported in Excel. We invite you to subscribe to our channel so that you are always up to date of our upcoming videos. See you soon.